Okay. I don't know how I missed this after the Super Bowl. Welcome back to the Liz Wheeler Show. Michael Strahan interviewed Damar Hamlin at the Super Bowl, around the Super Bowl. It aired during the Super Bowl. And during this interview, to Michael Strahan's credit, he asked Damar Hamlin the question that we all want to know, pretty much the critical question about what happened when Damar Hamlin had a heart attack on the field. We all saw it. Michael Strahan asked him, you know, you're a 24-year-old professional athlete, you're healthy, you've been screened medically by the NFL. What did doctors ultimately tell you happened? Why did you have a heart attack? And this is what Damar Hamlin answered.
From the ICU, the question on so many minds, what caused his heart to stop beating?
You're 24, peak physical condition, could run circles around me right now. How did doctors describe what happened to you?
That's something I want to stay away from.
I know from my experience at the NFL, they do more tests than anything. And in the course of you having your physical, did anybody ever come back with any, say you had a heart issue or anything that was abnormal?
Honestly, no. I've always been a healthy, young, fit, energetic, human being, let alone athlete. So it was something that was just, that we still processing, and I'm still talking through with my doctors just to see what everything was.
Holy cow. Holy cow. The NFL knows. The NFL knows. Holy cow. Stick around for the extended VIP only segments. At the end of the show, you can go to lizwheelershow.com/locals. We are going to talk more about this. Holy cow. The NFL knows. We're also going to talk about the new meta-analysis of mask studies, whether masks are, whether they work or not, this new analysis. That's lizwheelershow.com/locals. Apparently, activists on the radical left are now saying that straight men must date, quote unquote, trans women. This is people that are born biological male who identify as women, in order to combat hate and bigotry. I'd like to address that on the show today. Also, comedian Chelsea Handler made a video that has gone wildly viral, disparaging parents and children and promoting her anti-child lifestyle. I have a couple of thoughts about this that I'd like to share with you today. So let's get to it. Okay, I like Cozy Earth, and I want to tell you why, because I think you'll like it too. I don't know about you, but going to bed at a decent hour does not always mean that you get enough sleep. Often I was too hot or I was too cold. I was just not comfortable, and therefore I woke up a lot, which is not restful. That all changed though with my Cozy Earth bedding. It's the softest, most luxurious, and responsibly sourced bedding on the planet. I know I'm always raving about Cozy Earth bedding, but I am not alone here. There are over 5,000 five-star reviews on their website, like this one from Allison, who says, I love them. They're the softest, most comfortable sheets I've ever slept on. Now, you guys know that I have Cozy Earth sheets on my bed at my house right now. I share this with you because I love them, and I know you will too. Cozy Earth bedding is made using only the finest bamboo. It's no wonder top designers choose Cozy Earth. Their bedding is naturally temperature regulating, so you'll sleep comfortably all year round. I sure do. Whether it's their luxury sheets, their loungewear, their pajamas, or their plush bath towels, you'll love shopping at Cozy Earth. And by the way, you can now order their bedding in 5 awesome colors. I got a good deal for you. You can save 35% on Cozy Earth. You do have to hurry. This offer ends soon. Go to cozyearth.com/Liz35 and be sure to enter Liz35 at checkout to save 35%. That's cozyearth.com/Liz35. cozyearth.com/Liz35. Okay. Maybe you've seen this video. It certainly made the rounds all over social media today, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, on Facebook. Comedian and actress Chelsea Handler made a video talking about the fact that she chose not to have children. She aborted her children instead. And I'm actually going to let you watch this video. Obviously, a little warning here. It's graphic. There's some profanity, but you have to get the idea of what she's saying in order for us to properly respond to it. So take a look.
This is a day in the life of a childless woman. I wake up at 6 a.m. I remember that I have no kids to take to school, so I take an edible, masturbate, and go back to sleep. I wake up at 12:30 p.m. and get ready for a busy day of doing whatever the I feel like. I put on my most impractical and stylish shoes since I won't be chasing a child around the grocery store. I go to my fave spot in Paris to grab a croissant. I do a meditation sesh on the plane since I have no screaming kids, allowing me all the time in the world to become enlightened. The weightlessness of my existence has granted me superhuman powers. I teleport myself back home. Then I get ready for a night out with whatever hot guy I met on Raya that morning. I call up a babysitter and tell her that I don't need her since I still don't have kids. Now it's time for a workout, so I hit Mount Everest for a quick climb. I invent a time machine, go back in time, and kill Hitler. Freeze, you bastard! It's amazing what you can do when you have this much free time. And that's a day in the life of a childless woman.
Okay, so yes, I use the term comedian loosely. I have a few practical comments on this because it has gone so wildly viral. And then I'd like to share with you a philosophical thought that I had about the ideology behind this fairly recent push, this antinatalism push. So first of all, when I watch this video, I know that there are a lot of response videos that are very angry at Chelsea Handler, that are insulting her, and I don't feel that anger towards her. I actually feel very sad for her because her existence seems extremely, extremely empty. I would not trade my beautiful, sweet, wonderful daughter for the so-called self-love that Chelsea Handler is offering for anything in the world. Because you know what? Self-love, the way that Chelsea Handler describes it, is fake. It's empty. It's nothing. It's just vapor in the wind. It's materialism. It's self-idolatry. And you compare that to the tiny, precious, eternal soul that I'm shepherding in my daughter. That's real love. And that's incomparable to any kind of materialism or experience that Chelsea Handler is talking about. It's also, by the way, part of this I just didn't get when she's talking about essentially insinuating that you can't have an adventurous life if you have a child, and that women have to choose between having children and doing fun things. And I find this to be very misogynistic. This is a very anti-woman message, right? To say that, oh, you can't have children and do fun things. You're not able, you don't have the ability, the capacity to do both. That's very misogynistic. And I also just don't get this. My daughter just turned 2 and she's already been on over 100 flights. I take her everywhere. It doesn't slow me down at all. So I don't understand this. I think it's because she doesn't have the comparison. She doesn't know what she's missing. She's pretending to make a choice fully informed, but she's not fully informed because she's never been a mom. She doesn't know what it actually means and what you can actually still do. She's just falling for the propaganda from those who are ideologically anti-human and anti-child. We'll get to that part in a minute. But just a surface level thing that I wanted to point out, that I have no idea what she's talking about. You certainly can have a child and be adventurous. She's also conflating gratification with joy and fulfillment. And gratification is not the same thing as joy and fulfillment. Gratification might be a fleeting pleasure, but you seek gratification to fill some kind of emptiness, to fill a void. That's not what joy is. That's not what fulfillment is. You seek gratification to fill a void because you aren't happy. And the entire point of this little campaign, this little anti-child campaign that she's on, is to try to prove to us that she's happy because she doesn't have children. But you don't abuse yourself with drugs and sex toys if you're fulfilled. You do that if you're empty and if you're seeking gratification as a misplaced mechanism to try to fill that emptiness. But gratification is not the same thing as joy. She's also just lying because she doesn't know what she's talking about. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She can't compare your life and your lifestyle if you have a child to a life and a lifestyle without a child, because she's only ever not had a child. So she doesn't know what she's talking about. A more accurate examination of whether women are happy and fulfilled having children or whether women have a better lifestyle without children would be to look at moms, because those of us who have children have been both. Throughout my 20s, I did not have children. I was single, and then I was married, and then for a couple of years we didn't have children. And then in my 30s, I had children. So a better comparison, and I'm not the only one, this is true of every mother, of course. A better comparison would be asking moms who've actually done both, are you happier and more fulfilled with children, or do you regret it? And there are a lot of women who didn't have children who regret not having children, but there are very, 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 very few women who had children, even if it was an unplanned pregnancy or something unexpected, and end up regretting it. That tells you more about the reality of the comparison of having children versus not having children and where the fulfillment actually lies, where your joy actually lies, than anything that Chelsea Handler can come up with. She doesn't know. She's ignorant. She doesn't have the experience to weigh in here because she's only ever experienced one thing. So she's painting this false choice between something that she knows nothing about. She has had abortions, though. The reason she talks about this all the time is because no matter how many times she lies about those abortions, claiming that it was the best thing that ever happened to her and she wouldn't have been successful if she'd had those babies, she thinks about those babies all the time. She thinks about them so much that she speaks about them and speaks about them publicly. Because like every woman who has undergone an abortion, whether they admit it to themselves or not, she feels regret. Because those were her babies. And she ended the lives of those babies. And I'm not going to sit here and yell at her for being a horrible cultural influence, even though she is, because I feel so sad for her. I feel this is all she is. Nothing more. This is all she has. Nothing more. And it breaks my heart that she's been suckered into, you saw the video, this very meaningless existence. Also, and I know the response from a lot of anti-natalists who are defending her is, well, she's just making the choice that she wants to make. You make the choice that you want to make, not about abortion, but about having children. And, why is it your business what choice she wants to make? And I reject that premise because she is not just quietly making her own choice or even making the case for her choice. She's actively denigrating the choice of every woman who chooses to have children. She's actively denigrating motherhood. And she's actively demeaning children. She's painting this, as I said a moment ago, false picture for young women, if young women even watch her, whoever watches her. She's painting a false cultural picture, and this does influence. It does influence the way that people think about children. It influences the way that people think about family. It influences the way that people think about success. And so I want to talk just for a minute about what happens as a result of this type of toxic narrative that Chelsea Handler is pushing. And then I want to talk a little bit about the ideology that underpins this, because this is not just a comedy skit that's gone bad. It's not just an unfunny comedy skit. It's not a comedy skit or a video that is tinged with the trauma of her choice to have an abortion and her choice not to have children. This is an ideologically important influence on our culture. So let's talk about antinatalism for a second. Before we do, I want to talk to you about American Hartford Gold, because I imagine it is not only me, but the future is seeming more insecure and uncertain. At every turn, we are getting less for more, while record high inflation, soaring interest rates, and the looming recession are threatening our businesses, our jobs, and our retirement funds. Even Fed Chair Powell warned us to brace for more pain. That's not something that you want to hear from the Fed chair. Fortunately, there's a way to secure your hard-earned nest egg against this pain. You can do what I did. You can call the only precious metals dealer that I trust, American Hartford Gold. They make it simple. They make it easy to protect your savings and your retirement accounts with physical gold and silver. With one short phone call, they can have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside your IRA. If you call them right now, they will give you $1,500 of free silver on your first order. So don't wait. Call them right now. Call 866-781-7499. That's 866-781-7499, or text Liz to 65532. Again, that's 866-781-7499, or text Liz to 65532. Okay, so the ideology underneath this rant, this viral video by Chelsea Handler, which when I saw this, like I said, I know some people were very angry about this, and my emotional reaction to this was, oh my goodness, this woman has a very empty life. This woman doesn't know what she's missing. She's been suckered in by this narrative, this feminist narrative that told her that in order to be fulfilled, she has to be promiscuous and abort her children and avoid being a wife and a mother. And it's incredibly sad. It's incredibly sad. And I wanted to talk just for a minute about who the they is, because we say, oh, they suckered her in, or the narrative that they push on her. Well, who is the they? What is this ideology and what is it based in? There's been a resurgence of a philosophy or an ideology called antinatalism in the past couple of years. It's essentially just a rebrand of an anti-human ideology. But this antinatalism, you might have seen billboards that popped up around the country a few months ago that said, stop having kids, and pointed you to a website that I think was called stophavingkids.com or stophavingkids.org. And on this website, this organization was advocating for people not to have children. Oh, surprise, surprise, given their name. And the justification for this was the claim that having children is immoral because humans are the biggest drivers of climate change, and climate change is threatening the existence of our planet. So in the name of the cult of climate alarmism, this website was advocating, they were activists for people not to have children. Again, the reason I point this out is because the antinatalists tend to pretend that their choice not to have children is just a personal choice that they're not trying to push on anyone else. Like, mind your business, don't get involved in my life. But the truth of the matter is the antinatalism cult is trying to influence your thoughts and your decisions by demonizing families, children, motherhood, and even trying to create a moral dilemma in the minds of young people about whether to have children. We saw this in AOC a year or so ago. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said that she's not sure that she can, in good conscience, have children because of the impact on climate change. We see this with Harry and Meghan. Harry came out and said, oh, we're not going to have more than 2 children. 2 children are the max because we want to be good stewards of the environment, so we're just going to replace ourselves. It's so noxious. It's so ridiculous. Now, this cult of climate alarmism, is Chelsea Handler a member of this? Well, yes and no. Is she officially a member of this organization or one of the other antinatalist organizations? No, I'm sure she's not. But is she unwittingly carrying the water of this political ideology from the bowels of their little club where they hate babies and hate the earth and hate humans out into the general public? The answer to that is yes. And you'll remember last week when we talked to Dr. James Lindsay, we were talking to him about woke, what's the definition of wokeness? And he said, listen, woke is an actual cult. It is structured the way that a real religious cult is structured, where you have these people in the inner circle who know the ideology, meaning they know the truth. They know that whatever they're claiming is false. You have the people around them who are their ideological disciples who understand the political agenda of the cult, but maybe don't know that it's completely false. And then you have this outer circle of people who don't even know what the ideology is. They just have been suckered in somehow to buying into the talking points, and they will dutifully repeat the talking points in public. That is Chelsea Handler. That is the role that Chelsea Handler plays in the antinatalism cult. Is she an inner member? Probably not. Does she understand the ideology behind it? I don't know. She doesn't seem that smart to me. But is she carrying water for this poisonous ideology? She certainly is. This ideology of antinatalism is rooted in the philosophy of a man by the name of David Benatar. He's from South Africa. David Benatar is an atheist. Shocker. He claims that nothing has meaning. He claims that we're all just matter that spontaneously happened, and there's nothing greater and nothing worse, that we're just stuff, the same as dirt. Like I said, he's an atheist. What I just described is atheism. His religion is veganism. And he has participated in events, not veganism the way that I'm a vegan, where I eat whole food, plant-based stuff to tamper down inflammation in my body. I'm talking about veganism like animals are people too, animal rights, that kind of veganism. In fact, he has made some truly wild claims like COVID-19 and other viruses of this nature is a response to humans mistreating animals. Now, clearly that's absurd. It's conspiracy theory. It's not even a conspiracy theory. This is like science fiction. But it's also funny when I hear atheists making a claim that some action that they have dubbed to be moral or immoral, and if they're atheists and they just invent, it's just their preference about whether something's moral or immoral. It's not rooted in any objective truth. But when they assign something morality or immorality, and then they also propose the idea that because people engaged in this action, which they have arbitrarily assigned morality or immorality, it begets an action, an arbitrary response from the universe. What they're doing, atheism is actually just an anti-God cult, because they're still proposing that there is some force, that there is some objective truth, there is some definition of good and evil that begets responses. They just don't want to acknowledge the creator and the natural law that the creator has instilled in mankind. So they invent their own. So atheism is not just, well, I don't believe in God. It's actually a cult. It's an anti-God cult. This describes David Benatar perfectly. And his belief when it comes to antinatalism specifically is that because life is meaningless, this is what he claims, because life is also full of suffering, therefore, the creation of new life should be avoided whenever possible. If you're sitting here and you're like, oh my goodness, that is sad. That is so empty. That you feel so sorry for this man. Well, that's the exact same feeling that you should have for Chelsea Handler, because this is the ideology that she's parroting. And she's not just parroting this ideology, she's been suckered into making life choices based on this ideology. And Chelsea Handler's not the only one. She just happens to be maybe the most famous one and the oldest one. Meaning when AOC says, oh, I don't know if I can have children, well, she's close to my age, right? She's about 30, I'm 33, so she's close to my age. She still has plenty of childbearing years left. She most likely will change her mind, but everyone knows that what she's saying now isn't a final decision. The same with Harry and Meghan. They talk about limiting the number of children they're gonna have because of climate change, but they have 2 beautiful children. So they're saying something that's incongruent with their behavior. Even if they don't have more children, they still have 2 children. They're still parents. David Benatar believes that human life is empty. And Chelsea Handler has made this decision, and it is now irrevocable. She's old. She's 47 years old. She doesn't have a choice to reorder her life, even though she's realized that this has created emptiness. So she resorts to drugs. She resorts to, abusing herself with sex toys and pretends that she's happy. There's an article on the National Review about antinatalism, about David Benatar. This is back from a couple years ago when David Benatar was making the rounds in American academia talking about antinatalism. And a writer by the name of Declan Leary wrote a paragraph that just spoke to me. This paragraph, this thought on antinatalism encapsulates this ideology in, let me read it to you. You'll understand. Then I won't have to describe my feeling. You'll be feeling it too. This is what Declan Leary wrote. He wrote, the antinatalist disposition is similar to that of utopians, especially socialists, who seek to bring an end to the world as we know it and replace it with a new one. The motivation for both is the same, a disdain for the world in which we live. The antinatalists have the revolutionaries' desire to destroy, just not their desire to recreate. It's essentially the same philosophy given a few generations to rot. Is that something or is that something? So what we have in our country right now, we talk about this all the time on this show, especially the past couple weeks. We have this culture war. We have this battle over the social issues, this battle of good versus evil in our country. And the people on the left who are fighting on the side of evil are fighting in the name of a neo-Marxist ideology, critical race theory, queer theory. And that's the underpinning, the same underpinning of the antinatalist cult. You don't have to vocalize Marxism to be operating through the lens of a neo-Marxist ideology, but it's the same. And Declan Leary laid it out perfectly. And the result of this, the downstream result of this isn't just old girls like Chelsea Handler tragically regretting their life choices, but being unable to vocalize that regret, because to vocalize that and to acknowledge that, to internalize that would be devastating. The downstream effect of that is impacting young girls too, who are facing their futures completely unsure how to think about themselves, how to think about their essence, how to think about their identities. We have a CDC report, this is a new report from the CDC, that found that 57% of teenage girls felt persistently sad or hopeless in 2021. Over half of teenage girls were suffering from mental health issues in 2021. 30% of them were suicidal. 1 out of every 3 teenage girls contemplated taking her own life in 2021. It's hard for me to articulate what a monstrosity our culture is, that we have done this and inflicted this on young girls. 10%, 1 out of every 10 Gen Z girls in Gen Z, identify as gender diverse. At the same time, suffering this severe mental health crisis. Why is this? This is why what we're talking about today. Our culture, through influencers like Chelsea Handler, who are parroting the ideology of David Benatar, antinatalism, which has in its roots the same destruction, atheistic destruction that communism and Marxism do, is assaulting the very identity of women, of young women, their essence, their vocation in life, their womanhood, their femininity, their innate desire to be wives and to be mothers. This is ingrained in each and every one of us. And our culture instead, through these influencers, are telling young women that true liberation, true empowerment can be found through promiscuity and abortion and drugs. Our culture has been telling women, young women, that the marriage that they desire and the motherhood that they crave are stifling. That culture, that society will be disappointed in them, that they won't be reaching their full potential, that they will miss out on experiences, that they will be suffocated by the bounds of the two things that young women actually want the most. And then you throw in a dose of this cultural Marxism that we see in schools and critical race theory and the queer theory that's prevalent on all social media platforms, the gender identity stuff, and this is what you get. You get a serious mental health crisis in a generation of women, the likes that we have never seen before. And it's not just young women. It's not just young women. Look at the waterfall effect here. And I want to look at not just women, also on men. But first I want to talk about 4 Patriots. A food shortage could be coming even in the United States. This is what experts were writing as recently as July, and that's terrifying, especially if you have a family. Drought, inflation, and particularly new political policies are pushing America's food supply near its breaking point. This is why survival food is more important than ever to secure the safety of yourself and your family, your loved ones. I highly recommend that you create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. This is not ordinary food. We're talking good for 25 years, super survival food. Hand-packed in a family-owned facility in the US, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. That's a bonus. The kits themselves are compact, sturdy, water-resistant, and they stack easily. They have delicious breakfasts, lunches, dinners. And by the way, you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. It's super easy. You just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use my code Liz. I got you a good deal. You can get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store. Just go to 4patriots.com and use code Liz to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com, code Liz, to start building your own stockpile today. 4patriots.com, code Liz. The waterfall effect of this assault on women impacts not only this generation of young women, but it also impacts young men. There is an influencer, a wildly famous influencer by the name of Dylan Mulvaney. This is a person who has documented a transition, born a male, transitioned to a female. Dylan Mulvaney has documented this in a TikTok series called Days of Girlhood that went so viral that Joe Biden invited Dylan to the White House, gave Dylan Mulvaney an interview with the President of the United States, who won't talk to the rest of us, who doesn't do press conferences, won't answer questions from his constituents and his voters, during this interview, the President of the United States told Dylan Mulvaney that parents should not be allowed to prohibit, or states should not be allowed to prohibit transgender surgeries for children. This is the extent. So Dylan Mulvaney gets on TikTok and Instagram and makes this video, which has also gone viral in the last day. Take a look at the claim that Dylan makes in this video.
It's day 335 of being a girl, and I wanted to go on record to say that this might be the hottest I've ever looked and will ever look in my lifetime. And I'm making this video so that in thousands of years, there will be evidence. Is it the dress? It could be the dress. Is it the makeup? Or is it the hair? Because I think it's the extensions. And when I have extensions in, I don't know my name. I don't know where I live. I just know that I love these. And I know that I look like I could steal a husband, but I want to promise you, look me in the eyes. I want to promise you that I would never do that to you.
Okay, first of all, I had a really interesting conversation with my executive producer talking about the planning. It was actually before we were planning this particular show. It was a couple days ago. We were talking about Dylan Mulvaney and some of the other videos, some of the other Days of Girlhood videos. And my executive producer is like, remember, this person is an actor. This is performance art. It's actually not the quote unquote authentic documentation of a transition. This person is an actor. And this video reminded me of that because listen to the tone of voice that Dylan speaks in this video. The intonation of words, the emphasis of words. Dylan could have been saying something extremely meaningful in that tone of voice, and it would have sounded really authentic, which just reminds us this is performance art. This is propaganda. That's what Dylan Mulvaney is, propaganda. Dylan says, I look like I could steal a husband. When I saw that, I literally said, ha, not unless your husband is gay. There you go. So in the swirling mess that our culture has made in people's minds, this is what they try to do. They try to destroy reality. They try to tell you that what you know is not true, and what you know is not true is reality. And it's confusing for a generation of people. The purpose of this confusion of reality, this redefinition of words, this destruction of objective truth is to, first of all, become authoritarians, because those who are the ones who define reality or redefine words, they are the arbiters of truth. There's another phrase for an arbiter of truth when they serve in a political role, and that is authoritarian, because you can change the definition of anything at any time to suit your political whims here. The arbiter of truth is also the arbiter of morality. And we are seeing from the radical left that this push, especially when it comes to the transgender ideology, this was never about tolerance. There was something funny that went around Twitter today. It turns out that it's fake, and I want to talk about this. It's fake news built on something real. So let me show this on the screen. This is a meme that went around Twitter. It says, "Fight bigotry. 98% of straight men are unwilling to date trans women because of hatred. This has to change." And the little stamp, the little branding in the bottom left corner says trans rights campaign. Now, this is fake. This is actually a meme that was created on 4chan, I think. And it's not real. There's no such organization called the Trans Rights Campaign. However, before it was debunked, it sparked an article named "Straight Men Must Date Trans Women to Combat Hate, Says Activists." And again, this was roundly mocked on social media by the left as being fake news, which technically this meme is fake news because there's no organization called Trans Rights Campaign, but it's not actually fake news because the message that's on that meme, even though the meme itself is not from an organization, the message on that meme is very real. There's an article from an organization called, let me bring this up so I can read it to you exactly. From a website called them.us, and this is what the title of this article is. This is a real article. This is not satire. It says, "New research shows a vast majority of cis people won't date trans people. A recent study attempts to quantify the extent of trans discrimination when it comes to romantic and sexual relationships. And this is what the article says. Considering the discrimination that trans people face on a daily basis, it comes as no surprise that trans people are overlooked when it comes to dating. Two Canadian researchers recently asked almost 1,000 cisgender folks if they would date a trans person in a new study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships. This is the first study to ever attempt to quantify the extent of trans discrimination when it comes to romantic and sexual relationships. So that phrase right there is key. Discrimination in romantic and sexual relationships, as if trans people are owed a romantic relationship as a fundamental right, and therefore, if someone chooses not to be in a romantic relationship with a trans person, that they are depriving that trans person of a right, that is discrimination. It's almost unbelievable that this is the narrative that's being pushed by the left, except look at our culture. What's unbelievable has become believable. This is what the article said. Only 12% of all participants selected trans woman or trans man. Virtually all heterosexuals excluded trans folks from their dating pool. Only 1.8% of straight women and 3.3% of straight men chose a trans person of either binary gender. But most non-heterosexuals weren't down for dating a trans person either, with only 11.5% of gay men and 29% of lesbians being trans-inclusive in their dating preferences. So I guess if it makes you a bigot to not date a trans person, then what this article is saying is that most gay people are also bigots. Most gay people are also homophobic and transphobic. This is what happens with the leftist ideology. It devours itself. The article goes on to say, of the seven participants who identified as transgender or non-binary, 89% were willing to date another trans person. So that means 11% of trans people are transphobic? Is that what I'm hearing based on this train of logic? The high rates of trans exclusion from potential dating pools are undoubtedly due in part to cis-normativity, cis-sexism, and transphobia, all of which lead to a lack of knowledge about transgender people and their bodies, discomfort with these unknowns, and fear of being discriminated against by proxy of one's romantic partner. It's also possible, they say, this is so hilarious, it's also possible that at least some of the trans exclusion is due to the fact that for some people, sexual orientation might be not just about a partner's gender identity, but attraction to specific body types and or judgment of reproduction capabilities. Oh, you think? You think people's choice of a romantic partner is based on who they're attracted to? What kind of body they're attracted to? What a novel idea you're presenting here. This was never about tolerance. This culture war over LGBTQ, the LGBTQ lobby or the LGBTQ agenda, this was never about tolerance. This was never about inclusion. This was never about equality under the law. This was never about any of that. This was always an effort to destroy reality. This was always an attempt to destroy reality in order to appoint certain political people as the arbiters of truth, which in turn makes them authoritarian. This was always a political effort. And we're circling back to Chelsea Handler here, so bear with me. There was another video that went viral today. It is a video of a young woman who identifies as gender diverse or non-binary, whatever she calls herself. And she reads a letter that her grandmother sent to her about why her grandmother will not refer to her by a male name and male pronouns. Take a look at this.
Hi, so recently I texted my parents because I'm gonna go home for Christmas, and I said, hey, do you mind calling me Mike when I come back for Christmas? And then when I got home today, I got this letter from my grandma, and it is addressed to Miss Old Name. Not actually, but you know, I don't want to say my real name on the internet. Dearest dead name. On this, our Blessed Mother's feast day, I am writing to tell you that I will not address you as Mike. My decision is probably not a surprise to you. Others may comply with your request. My anguish in your chosen name and what that means has to do with your eternal soul. Know that I love you more than words could ever possibly convey to you. no matter how you decide to identify yourself, does not change my deep love for you, honey. Because of my concerns for your soul and your mental health, I am spending more time with Jesus in adoration. My cousins' last names are doing the same for you. Then she lists my 5 cousins that are below the age of 10 who are apparently offering up special personal sacrifices for me, who I didn't tell that I wanted to go by Mike. I didn't want to. I haven't talked with your godmother and her family, but I'm sure they would do the same for you. Do you know how much you are cherished and loved? It would be a joy to see you and be with you during the coming Christmas a celebration of our Lord's birth.
First of all, that is real love. This young woman was reading this letter, upset at her grandmother, but all she actually did was show the world, show us in this culture, how to handle the heartbreaking and difficult situation when a family member becomes a victim of these radical leftist ideologies. The letter was beautiful. The letter was loving. The letter was kind. The letter was empathetic. But the letter refused, the grandmother in the letter refused to relinquish reality. And I saw this video right after I saw the Chelsea Handler video, and I thought, this is what we are called to do in this culture war. We are called to fight politically, and we should advocate for political policies like prohibiting trans surgeries for children and prohibiting puberty blockers for children and getting queer theory out of public schools. All of that, it's good, it's proper, it's urgent, it's necessary. But we also have a responsibility in our personal lives to stop destructive, poisonous narratives when they begin to infect those we love. Imagine if someone had stopped Chelsea Handler when she was 16 years old on her way to get an abortion, if her mother and her father had said, Chelsea, this is a child inside you. You're going to be a mom. And I know it's unexpected, and I know it's scary, and I know you have ambition in your career, but we can all help you. We can do it. You can do it. You're strong enough to do both. Imagine the difference in the trajectory of Chelsea Handler's life. That she wouldn't have gotten suckered into this if someone had stopped and spoken calmly and firmly, spoken reality to her, reality in love to her. That is real love. And this is what we have to do to fight the culture wars, in addition to the political battles. It'll save women from becoming Chelsea Handler. It'll save men from becoming Dylan Mulvaney. It will save young people from getting sucked into this oftentimes irreversible ideology of queer theory. And it is ultimately saving our country from this kind of ideology is the only way to save our nation, because this ideology is rooted in a Marxism whose ultimate goal is the destruction of our nation, and the way in which they are attempting to achieve the destruction of our nation is by destroying our cultural institutions just like this. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button below, and ring the bell to make sure you never miss a video.